Hello, my good people. Today I'm going to do a little YouTube quickie, yeah, let's call it that, where I kind of go off script and talk about something for a few minutes. Okay, I'm not going entirely off script since I still have notes with me, but I'm still mostly keeping it off script. Anyways, I'm going to talk about the movie Obsession, which I saw a few weeks ago, and my overall thoughts on it. Keep in mind it's not going to be as in-depth as some of my other reviews, and I might work on a more in-depth review of it later down the line, but as for now, I'm just going to give my quick thoughts on Obsession. I will say this, I do legitimately like that it's becoming so popular, considering it's a smaller budget indie film, starring some relatively lesser known actors, which is always nice, you know, since not every movie has to have like these big name stars that everybody knows of. It's nice to see new talent and what they can do, and the actors do a good job, such as the actor who plays the main character Bear actually doing a pretty good job at playing this weird kind of awkward introvert, and the actress who plays Nikki who does this good job of being like this normal girl, but then once the wish happens she becomes more unhinged and even kind of freaky and insane. Also, it is a pretty interesting premise. I mean, granted, the idea of having an obsessed girlfriend or boyfriend is definitely a premise that's been done before by other movies and shows and so forth. However, where this movie does add its own twist is the fact that, unlike most other examples, the movie actually kind of portrays it as, well, it's kind of Bear's fault, not just because he made the wish, but he's too stupid and stubborn to try to do something about it at first, until it's too late and it's clear that Nikki is just not the same person at all. Also, yeah, it definitely shows that it was made on a lower budget. Not just due to the lack of, special effects, despite the fact that it's a supernatural film. Despite that, they use their limited budget to the best effect. I mean, there is good work around this idea, considering, you don't have to show an actual possession. You just have to have this character switch from being themselves to somebody completely different, and the fact that you can mask the fact that there's no effects by having characters talk on the phone with a different entity. It's hard to explain, but what I'm trying to say is that I think they did a good job using their limited budget and effects. And seeing this movie become a cultural icon so quickly, with tons of fan art, cosplay, and so forth, is all pretty impressive stuff for a movie with shoestring budget. Also, yeah, this movie can get indeed legitimately creepy and tense at times. Like, the way it's shot, it makes this normal human being appear surprisingly threatening and scary, as well as just how surprising it can get with its, over-the-top violence and gore, and just how bleak things can get for our main characters. However, I will say that even though I appreciate this movie for its ambitious for a low-budget film, it's shining the spotlight on lesser-known actors who do a good job, and as well as just being a surprisingly tense film for a simple premise, I will say that I do indeed have problems with this film. For starters, I will say that the film is overly dark. Not in tone, mind you, but I mean, sometimes it's legitimately hard to see what's on screen just because of how everything is darkly lit. I don't know, I feel like you could have lit it up even during the night scenes just so I can see what's going on. Also, I do feel like that the characters, while they work for what they are, they do lack a lot of depth. I mean, Bear is kind of the most, developed character here, despite having, the most character, considering he's the main one. He isn't a super interesting character since he's just a typical nerdy, awkward guy, which could work as a character, but they don't really give him any arc, nor do they give him much to do outside of be terrified. Nikki, aka Freaky Nikki, is probably the most memorable one here, mostly just due to her performance that is legitimately freaky, no pun intended. However, we don't really get to know much about her before the wish takes off, so it's not like we get to know her original personality super well, but if I did have to pick a favorite character in this movie, it would probably be her due to her performance and being a surprisingly intense bad guy, even though technically she's not the villain because the wish override her personality, so she is the main victim as well as the main antagonist. And then there's Ian, who's just kind of the jerky best friend, who honestly doesn't really do much, but does have his place in the story. Also, yeah, I'm gonna have to talk a bit about this. Spoiler warning, but I will say that in order to free Nikki from her, possessed state, it's basically revealed that Bear has to end his own life in order for that curse to wear off, and the narrative does heavily push him to do this. He tries to find non-lethal ways out, but unfortunately, he just can't. However, the movie does treat him like a coward for when he attempts to take the pills to overdose, but then he just can't bring himself to, which is kind of concerning. Don't get me wrong, wrong, I understand Bear isn't the best person in the world, and anybody who argues he deserves some kind of, like, justice or punishment does have a good point, but I just feel like since it's treating him like a coward for not wanting to end his own life, it could potentially be accidentally sending a kind of a wrong message about making amends or taking responsibility for your actions, which you should take responsibility if you do something bad and messed up. However, it just feels really weird for ending your own existence to be the main way to solve the problem in a story, regardless of how much they make him unlikable. It just feels off for me. But I obviously have an unpopular opinion since nobody else seems to bring this up, and you could argue that I'm looking a little too deep into it, but it is uncomfortable, the idea that the only way to solve the main conflict of the movie is to end it. But I'm not trying to be controversial, or even suggest that this movie is evil or anything like that. I'm just telling you my personal honest thoughts. So tell me, what did you think? Let me know. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is my first time doing a quickie. I'll probably do a more in-depth thought of this movie sometime later, as well as probably having a more fleshed out opinion overall. Anyways, this is it, and I'll see you guys next time.